Well, I just knew it. I just absolutely knew it. And when I was reading Zechariah Sitchin years ago, there was such a familiarity because I would talk about stuff like that. And I actually had my first experience when I was 3 years old. And I saw these other looking people or beings or whatever. And one of them said, "Look, she's not afraid of us," and I wasn't, but I couldn't really articulate that because to me, and I teach this, fear. Please, let's get rid of this. Fear is not false evidence appearing real, unless you're on investigative discovery and you're looking to frame somebody.
And there's nothing to fear. We should not
No.
fear anything.
And fear is lack of correct, not right or wrong, that's duality, but correct information. And so I was always curious and I was always reading. So
Hello, everybody. It's Eric Taylor, Big E Astrology, back with another amazing Knowledge is Love astrology podcast. Today, I truly have an amazing guest. This woman is a 5-time author with multiple ebooks, an NDE survivor of 5 near-death experiences. She is a medical intuitive with her own Anshara technique that she teaches worldwide, dealing with the cellular memory. She'll explain it to you. Trust me, it's awesome. And I welcome to the show on episode 235, Miss Sherry Anshara. How are you today, my friend?
wonderful, because I get to spend an hour with you. I'm so happy to be here. So thank you.
Listen, you just touched my heart. You won me over the first day that I met you at Missy's Mysteries, where I was doing astrology readings. And Missy is just an amazing woman that we both know. And she's been on my podcast. And I got to tell you, ever since that day, you have just put such an imprint on my life and my family's life. And I want to ask you, when was your first near-death experience? Not only do we have that in common, we also are both Virgos. So I'm just ready to just jump in and share everything with the audience. So tell us about the NDEs, but start with the first one. What happened?
Well, the first one was actually 3 years old. Can you imagine?
Oh my goodness.
It was wondrous. I'm not kidding. And so I had the privilege of being raised by 3 teenagers. So I never talked baby talk. I sounded, my sisters and I sounded like a midget because I sounded like they did. However, and I had a wonderful mother, but we were really that connected, but I was very connected to my sister. She was like my mom. My mother was very formal, but I just knew a lot of stuff. I could say intuitively, I could say physically. I just had, and this is not bragging rights, but I had a lot of knowledge and I would ask a lot of questions or I would say something about the continuum, which people call past lives. They're really a continuum in your cellular memory. And so I would express at 3 years old these timelines to my mother and scare her. And then I would talk to dead people. Just relax, audience. Honestly, they're not dead. And so they just weren't dead. And so I remember saying to my mother one time, and this is the point of it, how come the people I see that you don't see make more sense to me than the people we see? Because they don't make any sense to me. Said, how could a 3-year-old act? But remember, I was raised by 3 teenagers, like right out of the box. It was so I sounded like a midget for sure. That's what my sister used to say because I would have this vocabulary for this little girl, and so it was very frustrating for my mother, and it was frustrating for me. And one of the skills I teach is listening, not hearing, but listening. And so I got very frustrated. So I thought, this isn't working for me. I mean, because I'm very practical, very pragmatic. I guess that's the Virgo part. Is that what that is?
That is definitely your Virgo.
So if it's not working, so what I did was I started holding my breath. Oh, my knuckles turned over. So I started holding my breath. And so I held my breath so much that they didn't know if I was having asthma or whatever. So I actually ended up in the hospital way back when, and they had this thing like an oxygen tent that they put me in. And I remember my dad saying to my mother, she's going to be okay. And I said, no, I'm not. And I was sitting in the Buddha position in this this hospital going, I'm not going to be okay because I don't like it here. I don't get it. And then, there was someone talking to me that said, you're not ready to go. And I said, well, yes, really, I am. I could just, do an In-N-Out burger. That's what I call my near death, In-N-Out burger. So I thought, I didn't know that at the time, but I just said this just wasn't working for me. But obviously it didn't work. And so I ended up.
But this NDE, this one was really more self-induced by you trying to
They
not breathe.
they were all self-induced, really.
Wow.
All our MDs, and this is not a judgment of anybody, really, but these are the things that that I gained in the knowledge of actually what I'm doing today and along the way. But it was just very difficult because I couldn't breathe into life because I would say something and then I would get wronged for it, or I would be told, don't say anything, hold it in. So it's just like when I'm working with a parent or parents that have a 2-year-old and they say to the 2-year-old, act your age. I say to the parent, you act your age. They are acting their age. You have to
Amen.
like hallelujah. Like, who do you think you are?
I love that.
So I get after the parents and go, how old are you emotionally? Not chronologically. I don't care about the calendar. How old are you emotionally? And so it was very challenging. And I did years later find out how old my mother was emotionally, even though she had 5 kids. But the fact is, it was not honoring, and this is not judging my mother in any way, but she just didn't have the idea or the knowledge or the skills. And the interesting part, my mother was a Virgo also. We were completely different, completely. And so she would like everything perfect. And so it wasn't perfect for your daughter. And actually, this was one of the pivotal points. When I was 3 years old, I told my mother, you know what, I used to be Jewish and lived in New York. And she goes, we're Catholic, we live in Detroit. And that wasn't even part of our vocabulary. Years and years and years later, I met a writer for the Detroit News Free Press. And we bonded as, we just became buddies. And he moved to New York because I said, you are going to write a book. And he actually found our families there. He found all, yes. And so it's not like it was proof of the pudding, but it was just really amazing. And so whatever that is, even though I'm from Michigan, I probably carry that more New York, energy feel.
No, I'm a native New Yorker, and to me, you definitely, but Detroit and some of the big major cities, that city feel can feel very familiar, but definitely there is a New York energy and vibe to you. So wait a minute, this is kind of fascinating. So you are the Leo rising with the Virgo sun in the 2nd house and the Cancer moon in the 12th house. So you kind of mentioned that you had a good mom, but there wasn't much of a connection. And
No.
we see that with that moon in the 12th house. It does sort of dissolve the relationship. But it does really speak to how you are extremely nurturing and caring in the spiritual realm. Very supportive, but also protective. Now, okay, I got to lead you down this lane because we'll jump around, but you told me something really fascinating that resonated to me with that Cancer moon in the 12th house and some of your other placements. But share with the audience how you have come to understand the Greys, the reptilians, the Anunnaki, and their influence on humanity and mankind on Earth and our evolution.
Well, I just knew it. I just absolutely knew it. And when I was reading Zechariah Sitchin years ago, there was such a familiarity because I would talk about stuff like that. And I actually had my first experience when I was 3 years old. And I saw these other looking people or beings or whatever. And one of them said, look, she's not afraid of us. And I wasn't. But I couldn't really articulate that because to me, and I teach this, fear, please, let's get rid of this. Fear is not false evidence appearing real, unless you're on investigative discovery and you're, looking to frame somebody.
And there's nothing to fear. We should not fear anything.
And fear is lack of correct, not right or wrong, that's duality, but correct information. And so I was always curious and I was always reading. So I'm really grateful to my siblings because they introduced me to reading really at a very young age. And so when I even went to kindergarten, even though I was left-handed and but ambidextrous, but I write basically left-handed, but I could do it right-handed and upside down and backwards. I could write all over the place. It drove the teachers crazy. And so they said, you have to do it a specific way, hold your paper. And I said, no, we do it this way. So the point of it is, I was always looking at things from a perspective. A perspective. This is wordology, is your biology, what I teach. So perceptions, or the receptions and deceptions of my conceptions or yours or anybody, there were no facts. So I was always looking at the facts. So when I would see someone that people would call a spirit or a dead person, or someone that didn't look like us, that there has to be a fear involved. And I could not get that. I could not get, why would you be afraid of something until you had the information? And what I discovered, it's not frequency and vibration, those are byproducts, it's resonance. So if you resonate to fear, you send out the frequency and vibration that you're afraid, and that's how you get attacked. But if you are in the resonance of non-fear, then you can make a connection. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. And I was always a history buff. I was always looking at what is the history. Example, 8 years old, raised my hand. I said, if Columbus discovered America, how come people were living here?
Can I tell? Wait. Can I tell you something? So my boys will be 11, this week, right? And what's just so fascinating, they still, in the 2000s, and I remember in their second or third grade class during the pandemic, they're still teaching the same lies
I
in the
know.
school system. And honestly, Sherry, it makes you feel like, can we just stop and grow up and be adults?
I
We didn't
totally.
discover a damn thing, and let's just stop the lies. Even the kids know it's not true, so it's just so silly.
It is, and these are new kids on the block, and I'll talk about them.
Yeah.
And so so the teacher said memorize it. Well, guess what? Cellular memory is who you are. It's all your continuum. It's the clarity. I say the minute the sperm hits the egg, your nose knows to be a nose cell, your toe knows to be a toe cell, or you have a fingernail at the end of your nose. But cellular memorization. So the teacher said memorize it. And even though I was 8 years old, that like really influenced me. Really, really influenced me. And I go memorize it. And so as I started reading, again, thank goodness for these older siblings, is they introduced me to reading things that were far ahead of my pay grade, in school. And I found it fascinating. So I really started reading about history. And years ago, I lived in the suburb of Detroit, so I would take sometimes 2 or 3 buses to get to the Detroit Public Library, and I would go in there, and they didn't bother you. And so I found everything that I could read that would make sense to me in history. So how could this was a question from me. How could we look back in ancient times? And we're not even going to go back like ancient times.
Right.
These were running around on horses or camels or whatever we're running around on or walking. How did they build these incredible buildings? How did they do it? They didn't have engineers because we were told they didn't. What are you talking about? Look at some of the cathedrals
Oh,
that were built, and some of them don't have any, masonry really in there. Now, wait a minute. Or you go to some of the quote ancient ruins. Why are they ruins? And if they were ruined, they wouldn't be there, but they're still together, and there wasn't any cement. So how did this happen? So how did they move these? You mean to tell me that they had 4,000 slaves lifting one block? I don't believe so whatsoever. So there had to be other avenues. So when I was introduced to Sitchin, and I had an opportunity one time to meet him, like it made
oh,
sense.
wait, you actually got to meet him?
I did one time.
You know, The 12th Planet is one of my favorite books.
I know.
Oh,
And it was, and you know how much there is. Well, I read one of his books in one evening
wow.
because it was like, oh, I know those. Yeah. And I'm going through the book and I'm going, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. Finally, that makes sense. And so because I had read other things, and so this is not judging, But the fact is, we have been taught belief systems. So I asked you, Eric, what's the first letter of the word belief?
B.
And the first letter of the word system?
S.
And put it together. And it gets programmed in that left computer brain. So if we thinky or belief system were the only game in town, that's pathetic. Because if you look at in the animal world, if you want to call it, look at the variety. Now this is I love to do this all the time. I'm going to do this. You see what color is this? Isn't this white? A white sheet of paper? And they told me I was white. Like, I don't get this. Why do they call it human? The hue of man and woman,
Yeah.
the flavors. And that would drive me crazy as a kid, And so I thought there has to be something more here. And where did they have this knowledge? So could we have been visited? Okay, let's say, all right, so you are going across the ocean from Spain, in a tall ship, and you land in South America, and they're looking like, what is this? It looks like a ship with a lot of space in it. And there's people getting off, and they don't look like us. They don't dress like us. So they must be gods. We have to worship them because they have better technology. Well, you know what? So this is my way. I don't believe in extraterrestrials. There was nothing extra about them. They just had better technology. Like, are you crazy? Whatever. So then the humans started putting themselves down, really, that they're not smart enough, not good enough, because they are only taught through the left computer brain. That's part of the Anshara AHA method, is connecting left brain to right brain. So when you do that connection, I actually have a technique, and guess who gets it first? Kids. Where the adults are going, duh, no, where do I put my hand? What do I do? And the kids they just do it.
So wait. Let me slow down for a second. So, do you feel that part of your journey and part of your calling is not only to, teach your techniques and leave this legacy behind,
Yes.
but as a Leo rising sign, and you have Pluto and Jupiter on the ascendant, there is this connection to the children. And I know working and teaching and working with children is very near and dear to your heart. So how do you connect with the kids? And then in terms of your healing, explain to the audience a little window. And obviously I'll share my experience because I just recently did some work with you. What is your process in working with a client and really share your teaching and your focus with kids?
Okay, so there's a twofold here. So, okay, this is the Leo part of me, the jewelry. But the Virgo said, I'll get over this. So the Virgo part of me would like to be behind the scenes. Now the Leo part would like to be out front. My moon just cries about it. He doesn't.
I love that.
So anyway, one of the things that I noticed when I had the third near-death experience with, the breaks and the smashed head and brain out of place, which we didn't know, and I was a mess, and I asked for this information to come through, and
wait, but tell the audience, how did your brain get out of place, and what actually happened? You can't skip over that. They don't know your story.
Well, I was helping someone. Wordology. I never help anybody. I assist you. I'm not helping anymore. So I was helping this drunk woman in Connecticut, and it was in Old Saybrook at the Dock and Dine, that I called it the Dock and Die. And she fell out of the car and she was drunk, and I had a long day, had been in Boston in business, and then I came to meet a friend from high school. And the interesting part about it, she fell out of the car. So I got in her car to move it. And to make a long story short, it took off about 0 to 60.
Oh no!
And the police said when they found the car, was a couple days later, they said I must have accelerated. My shoe was under the accelerator. I was trying to pull it up, but it accelerated and it went about 40 feet in the air. I hit a pole a pole fencing around the marina, and there were yachts parked there. I didn't know. I just got there. It was like 11 o'clock at night, after we had this wonderful dinner in Old Lyme, Connecticut. Now we're in Old Saybrook. And so it took off. It went about 40 feet in the air, flipped over, came down, and it went about 40 feet underwater.
What?
Yes.
Honey, were you drowning in the car or you fell out?
I know I was in the car.
In the ocean or in the lake or where?
No, in the Connecticut River. It's not very clean, let me tell you.
Oh my
And
God.
isn't that exciting? So I split my head and I had all these injuries. But the amazing part of it is because I had had a near death experience before that. So I thought, oh my God, this time, Eric, this time I made it. I actually made it out. There's no way that this body can come back here. And I was like smiling. And even though I had a good life, I did a lot of, wonderful things. And
Wait,
I
but
thought,
who rescued you, Sherry? Like,
well, that's the question. So I actually ended up in this place, and we could call it. Let's see, you could call it a space, a ship, a place, whatever. And I'm looking out this vast window. I mean, Captain Kirk was there. I'm only kidding. And so I met these wonderful 12 beings that I called the 12 wise guys. It was Connecticut, the mob and all
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So in my head, I called them the 12 wise guys. And so they, talked to me. I gained a lot of knowledge, and they said, you all have contracts. I go, contracts? Wait a minute, I didn't sign any contract,
The
And
soul contract, yeah.
they said it wasn't that you didn't read the small print, you didn't see the big print with your name on it. And so I've discovered that contracts are the con of the tracks, and that you have to get clear about why you created the contract. And so they said, no, you had made this agreement to come back. And I said, I don't know. I don't know what you guys are drinking or smoking. I mean, I was just talking to them just like whatever. And the interesting part about it is I had a black and white top on with a red stripe and a little shirt that matched underneath. And it had an anchor in the middle of it. Is that hilarious?
Are you for real?
No, honest to God. Honest to God.
Wait, but did the EMS come and get you out of the car in the
Nope.
water?
Nope. The interesting part about it is the window was open now. And so after all this experience, now you would think I had a lot of water in my lungs and all that. So anyway, all of a sudden, after this experience, they have no idea how long I was under there. They do not know. And I cannot give you a time. And then all of a sudden, I started floating out the window up to the front, and I'm yelling. Even though I've had 2 homes with pools, I can't swim. I don't even like to swim. I just like to lay around, but I, float around, but I'm not into swimming. Never did. Going to the beach doesn't work for me. So,
And you would think with the Cancer moon, it would be kind of natural to you, but
I know, but no. And I used to fly airplanes, so I, put me up in the sky, and I'm happy, And so, actually, I used to fly my own airplane, so I loved it.
we're going to talk about that because you know what? We actually see that in your birth chart in a fascinating way with Uranus and Gemini in the 11th house.
Yeah.
That's the pilot and the flight, and it's just amazing. But go ahead, because I'm trying to figure out how did you actually in the 3D realm survive this?
Yeah, that's what that was. But there was a purpose to this. There's always a purpose. Even though we don't like it to be on purpose, it is. So I floated up, and the next thing you know, I'm yelling, I can't swim, and I'm, water's blurbling. And all of a sudden, I felt some hands lift me up, because this is a dock for yachts. It's not like a rowboat dock. And the interesting part about it, I found out a couple of days later that the people who owned the yacht, they only used it for partying, but that night they took it out, and they never did. They just would go there and party. But they took it out. Otherwise, I'd have blown up the harbor probably. So I'm telling you, this was totally orchestrated. Whether people believe it.
Well, and listen, we all know, and we come to find out, the more we learn, and when you know better, you do better. But we realize there are no accidents, there are no coincidences.
Mm-mm.
This is part of the soul contract, the plan, right?
Yep. And so the next thing you know, I'm being lifted up. And I did find out, like, they told me that it was some lady that lived on one of the yachts. And so when I did get back to Michigan, I wrote her, and it came back, no such person, no such address. I might even still have it somewhere.
So were you hospitalized for a
Yes.
period of time?
Mhm.
How long?
But this is hilarious. So the ambulance and I'm trying to get up, and I remember distinctly, I put my head up like this, and this finger went into my head. It was all split open, and all this watery blood, and so it was quite dramatic. And
Was
so,
there a lot of blood?
oh yeah, it was like dripping all over. And so when you get a head wound and flesh wound, And so this man said to me, "You have to lay down." I said, "I have to go home." And he goes, "Where do you live?" I go, "Michigan." He goes, "You're in Connecticut." I go, "I know, that's the problem."
Sherry, oh my God.
I
Oh,
can't
wow.
help it. It's my weird sense of humor, but I was being serious. So then the next thing you know, the ambulance came and they take me to this wonderful hospital. And so I go, now this is like so weird. This is where I missed an opportunity. Listen to this. This is Sherry, the practical person now, the practical person. And so I'm looking at this older guy, older doctor. He was lovely in the emergency room. And he says, "I'm going to have to sew up your head." And I thought, crap. And someone had told me years ago that if you don't get stitches from an ER doctor, not because they're not smart, but you ask for a plastic surgeon. So I asked for a plastic surgeon. And this doctor came from a party, in town and sewed me up. And the funny part of it is, if I had only known, I missed getting a facelift for free because they only sewed me up here. But the inches, I can't help it, Eric. I have the weirdest sense of humor.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that?
Wait. That is beyond funny and hilarious, but
Even
at the
though
same
I was
time.
a mess because I had cracked bones in my neck and my head was smashed.
Now, see, I didn't know this story. We've never discussed this, and what's so fascinating, I can sort of really explain this in the Neptune and Libra in the third house in the local community. And I almost wondered, this is a weird question to ask, but I'm sure for you there are no weird questions, right?
Mm,
Did you in this experience or in this moment, or even at some point after, did you almost find a moment of like deep harmony and peace?
yes. So even though I was a mess, totally a mess, and this was interesting, there was a lady in the room that had been in the hospital many times, and she had like a little 3-year-old daughter. So the next morning, and I'll tell you about this. This healed up like in 3 days. The doctor couldn't believe it. I mean, the stitches just literally fell out almost on their own. He couldn't believe it. He said, "I've never."
But did you have like migraine headaches or anything afterwards?
I I can't say that I did, and I can't say that I didn't because part of me wasn't there.
Okay, okay.
Part of me wasn't there. But this little girl came in the room and she's put her arms up and she goes, "Lady, light lady," and she got in bed with me. And so when she would come to visit her mother every day, she didn't want to get in her mother's bed. She wanted to get in mine. And I'm
Oh,
sorry I didn't, keep her name and number, but I was still. But then I started like floating around the hospital, literally. So it was a teaching hospital, so they had like psychiatrists. And so this is what they asked me. They said, "How did this happen?" So I said, "Well, I can tell you how it happened, or I can tell you how you think it happened. What would you like me to say?" And I told this to the police. And they said, "How we think it happened." And I made up a story. And then they were happy. Otherwise, they probably would have put me in, psychiatric.
psych ward.
Exactly. Because I'm not going to tell them, like, well, I met 12 Wise Guys and all of that stuff. And that wouldn't work.
So, Sherry, what was the overlapping message or frequency or resonance that you got from these 12 beings and these wise guys? Like, did they not only tell you about the contract and that it wasn't your time, was there anything else that they shared with you?
Yes, knowledge about who humans are and why they are afraid of themselves.
Mm.
That they are much, and this is not a judgment, that they would rather follow than lead themselves.
Ah.
And see, and that so resonated with me going back to when I was a little girl. But remember, I had another near death experience in 65 that was, in between that. And so I just felt that these were my escape modules. Even though I had a fabulous life and I did a lot of stuff, had traumas, but why I was in that hospital when I was laying there, and I thought to myself, there has to be something smarter in this body because my brain's all screwed up. So I didn't find my brain particularly that smart, even though, years ago I was tested after that at the University of Arizona and they said I was a genius. And they go, "Well, that's how dumb you guys are. My brain's out of place." So that's the thing.
Wait.
I got studied as a lab rat for a week. But
But wait. That right there is kind of fascinating to me. Hold on. So, okay. You had mentioned this to me, and let me know if I'm correct. So, do you remember being in your mother's womb?
Totally, totally. And I remember being in there going, I got to get out of here. This isn't working for me. Nice lady, but I got to get out. Well, I actually was a preemie. So
Wow.
I was either an 8 month or a 7 month, but I was fat. I'm telling you, I came out, like going, I'm done. I got to get out of here. And so when I was in the hospital, asking my own self, there has to be something smarter in here because obviously I've goofed myself up and I'm a mess and it's in pain and I don't know where I am. And two words came to me: cellular memory. And when cellular memory hit, I go, that's it. So I was in the hospital for about a week. And then, and this is really hilarious. The receptionist called me and said, are you famous? I go, no, I'm not famous. They said, we've never had so many calls from one patient. And because I said, because I have friends from all over the country, especially from flying. And they said, our phone has been ringing about you, but we would have put the calls through because the doctor said she's supposed to be resting. So
Oh,
then I just started floating around the hospital and they would come and interview me and I would say, what would you like me to tell you? What would you like me to tell you? Because it made them comfortable. Makes
mm.
sense? And that's where we learn to lie. So herein lies the belief systems, the lie, not judging it in any way. Herein lies the lie.
Right, but so basically, you're saying something that's really deep because I always talk to people about in general, and I just released my Aquarius super full moon video coming up on Monday the 19th, right? And I was explaining, and I think this is what you're really getting at, that so often we get stuck in life because we want to be safe and comfortable. But when we're willing to be open to change and get uncomfortable, that's where the real growth and the blessings and the miracles and where the life happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I will give you an example of working. I had this lady come to me that was an executive and lovely, smart, and she walks in and she goes, I've never changed. I go, okay, let me get this straight. You have never changed. No, I've never changed. I've always been this way. And I thought, I could, well, I have to tell you this. I'm more impressed with your mother's vajayjay. Because if you came out with that hairstyle, those high heels, and that suit, your mother of a JJ rocked. So you're somewhere between diapers and Depends and underwear. Do you think you haven't changed? And she looks at me and she bursts out laughing. She goes, God, that was stupid. I go, no, isn't it perfect? Because we hang on to these belief systems that, if you go back to Rome or you go back to Italy or you go back and it wasn't called Rome, it wasn't even called Italy, or you go back to Greece or Mesopotamia,
Yeah.
what do you suppose these people did every day? They went shopping, at the local camel, whatever it is they could do, the camel train that went by, or, they had their belief systems, the Romans, laid down and ate, which really was not very good for their digestion. And so, did they do the stuff we did every day? They ate, they digested, whatever. It didn't make them any smarter or dumber than we are now. But now we have to consider what dumber means. This is not a judgment. But if we don't get connected to our own experience of life, instead of trying to prove ourselves, so you are already the proof. You're here. There is not one thing that we require to prove. So if you choose success this way or that way or whatever way you choose success, that's wonderful. It's fabulous. However, one person's success may not be someone else's, but we have all these boxes. And guess what, Eric, the boxes are called? The matrix, the duality matrix.
Yes.
So I've even written a book called Busting Out of the Matrix, Be Free. So if we have, let's the grid, that's the boxes. So let's say this is 14,000, let's say this is 200,000 years ago, and you're wandering around, you break your leg, and the tribe leaves you. They leave you food, but oh my God, it's an abandonment program. This is how it's called, the string theory. It's called the bands. So here you are, they leave you in a cave, they leave you food, and then they're gone, because they got to move on, and they don't know how to fix your leg. And so now you're on the Nina Pinta Santa Maria. It's 1492. You're going across the ocean blue, whatever. You get something wrong with you. They don't know what to do. They throw you overboard. You've been abandoned again. Oh my God, that same darn residence. So now it's this lifetime, and you go, look, I'm not going to, and this is all unconscious. This is all unconscious. So your body says, I'm not going to be abandoned. I'm going to be the abandoner. I'm going to be the abandoner. So I'm going to collect wives or husbands and abandon them or friends.
Oh
And
my
that's
God.
the flip side. It's called duality. So I teach non-duality. Actually, I have a book on my website. It's called And the Point Is Beyond Duality. So duality is good and bad, high and low, black and white, this way or the highway or whatever. So I would never judge someone's belief system, but I will ask them, does your belief system prevent you from believing in yourself?
Mm. So, okay, in a minute, I want you to share your website and your social media so people can find out different things. But I want to, before we get there, I want to kind of understand, when did you truly in yourself understand the cellular memorization and start to get these downloads where you felt like, okay, wow, I'm this medical intuitive in terms of being able to listen or hear the messages from someone's cells or their body? When did that kind of...
Back in 1991.
91, wow.
91. And even though I had two other near-death experiences subsequent to that, but this is what occurred to me, that there was such a huge difference between listening and hearing. So when I am assisting someone, I don't heal anybody. I'm not an Australian sheepdog. Let's get this clear. I'm not a healer. I assist you to heal yourself, but we have to get to the core of why we got goofy. And so listening to the body, I communicate with the body, just like I do with babies in the womb. So our body communicates with us all the time, but guess what we don't do? We don't listen. And we'll even say, I should have, and then you should all over yourself that you should have listened. So that's your intuition. Intuition is not booga booga. Intuition is our natural innate ability to discern, is this correct for me or not? Is this correct for me or not? And so if it's not correct, not right or wrong, then don't do it. If it's not correct, don't do it.
And yours is very strong because you have the true black moon Lilith in the first house in Leo on the ascendant. And when people have that, I mean, it is strong and you are super intuitive. Do you almost feel like if you could visualize that light body in yourself, do you almost feel like that stream of inner consciousness from the heart chakra to your root chakra in terms of your gut instinct and intuition?
In every cell, particle, and molecule. So light means information in form at your ion level. So let's say this is a cell, and this cell has been, put stuff in here. You're stupid, you're dumb, you don't know anything, and it builds molecules of emotion. Candace Pert wrote about this years ago. And so I can see that. So as you begin to release these molecules of emotion out of the body, I call this the empty fullness, the cells get free, and that's light. And so actually you are lighter, you're milligrams lighter. So you get on a scale, you lose 5 pounds, gain 5 pounds. But this comes out. So people get off, on my table, or I'm working with them over the phone or Zoom, and they'll say, I feel so much lighter, because you're actually expelling these thick, snotty, gelatinous, goopy, sticky molecules of emotion. So my clients have gotten rid of cancer. They were told they were going to die. They've gotten rid of drugs off of crystal meth. I mean, I'm not doing this to them. I don't do anything to you or for you. I participate with you. And when I am with you, all of these, quote, magical things happen, but they're practical. My courses are called Intuitive Powers, which is your natural innate ability to discern what is correct for you or not. And that is the intuition of your guidance. I mean, I have driven all over the place and followed my intuition without a roadmap, and found and discovered all kinds of stuff.
Well, that's how you showed up at Missy's Mysteries that Saturday, right? Because you
Exactly.
said you had no intention of going there.
None.
And then I got the revelation and download. I was like, that was my mother at work, because your name and her name are very similar, and the initials and everything. And I was just like, whoa. Because, okay, so wait, so share with the audience how they can find out about your classes, your website, your books, all your information. Share that with everybody now, please.
Oh, this is exciting. So my website is sherryanshara.com. And I have a free ebook called Getting Your Answers in 10 Minutes. It's 17 pages. And I have my blogs on there. I write 52 original articles a year for my blog, for my newsletter. So if you sign up, you have to accept it, because if it goes in the spam, then I get in trouble with Keep. So sign up. But this is the best part. This year, I am now teaching people to be the holistic Anshara facilitator. In September 9th, we start our online courses.
Wow.
And then after the end of the 10th week, then we have a in-person, a 20-hour weekend. And so now we all thinky that we have to fit in a box. Well, in my current class that we just started, and we're almost done with it, I have law enforcement, I have former military, I have naturopaths, I have Reiki masters, I have moms with small children that stay home and really work with their kids.
Yeah.
I have all kinds of people, corporate entrepreneurs. So how can all these people across the country, including in Europe, how can they be so different? They speak the same language, but they speak their own language because of, how they've been taught in their wordology, your biology. How do these people have anything in common? Consciousness. They're willing to look at something different, and we're getting really great reviews. And so I have a gentleman in his 80s, and his daughter is in the class, and that is the miraculous. So if anybody's interested, you go to the AnsharaInstitute.org. We're a nonprofit. And
spell that for everybody, please.
Yeah. And I'll tell you my name too. Anshara is ANSHARA, AnsharaInstitute.org. And our next courses to become a holistic Anshara facilitator, level 1, starts September 9th. And it is amazing, all the effort and work and everything that was so amazing to put into this. And it's to show you, like when I first, how you assess the body, and there's connections, the shoulders are the knees, and the jaws are the hips. And it's just incredible how smart your body is, and how smart children are, and they know that intrinsically, intuitively.
So wait, when you say that, right, I get the shoulders, knees. The upper and lower jaw represent the two hips?
The jaws are connected to your hips.
Okay.
And when we get TMJ, it's because the energy, we're not speaking our truth. Our feet are connected to our throat, which has a lot to do with the neck problems too. Did you know that this nose is the old 7 chakra system of duality? The sinuses are the first chakra. So I always ask, if you've got problems here, who stuck up your nose here? And it's just amazing. And TMJ is because the energy is pushed up and it's physical. Because we haven't been taught to see it, but I can see it. And it's amazing when it comes out of the body. It pops on the ceiling. It pops on the walls, even if I'm over the phone with someone.
Right. I want to ask you about that, because I experienced that. But don't we truly have a 13 chakra system, not just 7?
And I wrote it, and it really has to do with the DNA, because as we get through clearing out the double helix, which is the DNA of the duality. Oops, I did it again. And this is the sand.
The reincarnation loop.
Yep. And then you bring it down 3 times. See, we've been told this is 3rd dimension. Eric, it's a lie. This is not 3rd dimension. There are so many dimensions. In your body, you're multidimensional. Do you know how many systems you have in the body, and they talk to each other? So next year, when I get to like level 2 or level 3, I'm going to teach the communication in the body, because your circulatory system can talk to your digestive system. And that's what happens, because there's this inner dialogue that goes on. And so healing does not happen from the outside in. It happens from the inside out. And that's what the Anshara AHA, I call it the AHA method.
So
it's about.
Does that mean that with thought and words, the combination, that we can realign and really heal ourselves? Yes.
And all I'm doing is teaching the tools, whether you do it for yourself or you do it. So through the Anshara Institute, our goal is to change the dynamics of the healthcare system. So by next year, 47% of healthcare providers will be out of the system. That's doctors, nurses, from burnout, anxiety, depression,
They
drug.
were worn out just during the pandemic, and all the money and all this other stuff. I've seen a lot of people just stop doing it. Yeah.
I know 7 doctors right now that have quit. 3 are my own. But so what we would like to do is teach the medical profession these tools so they don't get burned out. We're also creating a new profession. Would you like to be in the new profession in healthcare? Or if it's just for you to know the stuff, how you know the stuff. That's what this is all about. Isn't that exciting? So after all these years, I am thrilled that this is that's what the AnsharaInstitute.org, we're a nonprofit, and our goal is to teach this methodology that I've been teaching for so many years, because it's really about you and the infinite wisdom and intelligence that is natural. So, Eric, I teach these 3 tools. First is Neo, non-emotional observer, because there is no intelligence in emotions. Emotions make us sick. The core of every illness is emotions. The second is Nell, non-emotional listener, and listening, because when you hear, then you start judging the other person by your terms. And then the third is connecting to cellular memory that I call NI, your natural intelligence.
Mm.
Your natural. So we have Neo, Nell, and NI.
Neo, Nell, and
NI.
Nye. Nye.
Yes, natural intelligence.
Wow. Okay, wait. So I still want to get back to kind of the beginning. As you understand it, whether it's Inky or Enkel or the Anunnaki and this and that, with the 12 strand to now 2-strand DNA, what was, or what do you feel the influence was on human beings, and that change with Anunnaki or whoever? I mean,
Okay.
people focus on the Anunnaki the most.
Okay, so let's first get rid of the word Anunnaki, because Anunnaki simply means astronaut in Sumerian. That's all it means.
Right.
But see, we get so hooked on the label, we don't listen to what's going on. So they really were called Nibirians. So I can give you the history. The Nibirians were in the Pleiades, and they got attacked. And there's more than 7 Pleiades. Wake up, please. And so they left and they went to Orion. And now the astronomers are considering that Nibiru was in Orion. Well, they left and they came into this field and they found Orion. And then they found this little planet that they built into Nibiru. So now they become Nibirians. And then when they got here, they were called Anunnaki, because in Sumerian, that's a word for astronaut. So let's look at the simplicity of this. So you are Italian, and you move to the United States, and you become an Italian American, or a Polish American, or a German American, whatever. And then years later, you moved to Nebraska. They don't care. Now you're a Nebraskian. So how did you start out in Italy, and then you became half and half, and now you're just from Nebraska? Because they don't really care. They're just happy you're in Nebraska. I just see how simple this is, but we made up history. His story.
Yeah.
His duality is male-based. Left brain, right side, male side. Non-gender. So this is where we manifest, manufacture, and manipulate. Men. Non-gender has nothing to do with gender. But we forget the right brain that goes to the female creative side. And so I actually teach godness. So we have 4 letters of Yahweh, right? So I just translate it to create through your female, organize through your right brain, implement through your body, organize through your left brain, manifest it, and through your heart you actualize. That's it. Whatever it is, whether you're creating a dinner or whether you're creating a fart. And people say, how can you do that? You say, if I eat this food, it'll give me gas. You just created a fart. Come on, get over it. I'm the practical gal. So isn't that amazing? But we all
stories. It's so funny how people get so scared, or they think that it's rude, or caught up with these natural things that our human bodies do, like burp or fart. And I'm just like, it's not a big deal. Like, so what? Like,
because you created it. You created an event, an experience, a situation. Situation means sit you at your ion level. So if you don't like the situation, get up and move. Stop
That's right.
sitting. Stop
That's
sitting on yourself.
that's right.
So really, healing is a practical thing. And it doesn't mean that you can't go to your doctors. They're wonderful. They have all this knowledge, or your nurse practitioner, or whoever it is. But you must first not give your power away to them, because it's not fair. That's how they got burned out.
Well, it's funny that you say that because, I've had quite a life, Sherry. But I've had 13 surgeries, and then I had my own near-death experience. But even in taking care of my mother, who was a survivor of breast and brain cancer and then dementia before she passed, I've definitely had a mixed bag with the medical system and Western medicine. But I do realize that there are times where we have to trust our own cellular memory and intuition in terms of how we're seeing things, because there's a lot of matrix programming, right, in the medical schools and things like that. And
Yes,
there's a lot of things that we think they should know, but they just really don't know. So that's where I'm realizing something like your system, it's more empowering for us as individuals, because think of it like now, right? We've got all these men helping women give birth and all these scheduled C-sections and all the silliness, when you had the midwives. And since the beginning of time, women have been giving birth really without a man, and a system and the hospital and surgeries for, millennium. So there's really, I think, a blending or room for both. Would you say?
absolutely. And that's why I feel it's really time. I've been talking to some amazing doctors around. I'm actually, one of the things that I'm working on now is to put together, I have put together a white paper with some of my friends. And our goal with this white paper and looking for funding for addiction. Do you know what addiction really is at the core, the emotional core? Doesn't matter what the addiction is. Do you know what it is?
What?
Desperation for attention.
Yeah.
And who gets the attention? The addict of whatever. We're not judging them. And so the issue is, and so if people support that addiction, guess what happens? Death. It's
Mm.
that we didn't come here to die. We came here to live. We came here to life our live. And if we're not healthy, then what's the point? I'm not wronging the system, but ask yourself, your own system in this infinite intelligence, all I've done is assisted people to connect to their own intelligence and whatever they're doing to support themselves to be healthy. I mean, I eat healthy, I love my veggies and fruit and whatever. But the fact of it is, it's don't do something that doesn't resonate. It's not frequency and vibration; those are byproducts. Does it resonate to you? But it
Mm.
doesn't mean because it resonates to you, not to someone else, that they're wrong. It's what they resonate to. We've got to get over these duality belief systems.
So let's get a little personal, because I had a recent experience with you. And I want to just get into your thoughts and brain for a second, because when we first started, you pretty quickly asked me what happened at 7 years old,
Yes.
right? So, what was the process as your hand was holding the back of my head and my cranium, my skull? What was the information that you were downloading or receiving from my cells? That was it just he had an experience at 7, he has a trauma at 7, like what was it?
Your body said, ask him about 7 years old. It's
Okay.
that clear. It's that just to ask him about what's going on at 7 years old.
But
And I
has it
don't, and
but
I
has it
don't
always been that clear for you?
know. Pretty much.
Really?
Yep, pretty
Okay,
much.
so because that was really powerful for me, because for me, listen, I'm a professional intuitive astrologer, relationship coach. I, you know, I am all about doing the work, right? As a Virgo and Cat Moon, I don't play. I do the work. because that helps me to be a better, facilitator of information and knowledge to help the collective myself. And I've done a lot of work healing my inner child. But as I tell people, it's a constant thing. And so I've worked on 6-year-old Eric, I've worked on 9-year-old Eric, but I kind of neglected 7-year-old Eric because I did not have distinct memories. My mother was shot in the head and left for dead at 7 years old. It was extremely traumatic for me. And I don't remember that year of life. She took a year off of work, sabbatical, had to rebuild everything and go through all this stuff to then teach for another 20 some odd years, right? And I remember going to the hospital, my sister and I, to see her because they didn't know if she would survive, and seeing my mother's head all bandaged and she couldn't talk. It was so traumatic. And you shared with me what did that create for me?
You were out of body. You weren't present. And that's what kids do. They go out of body. I did that a lot as a kid because it would be it wasn't like I was beaten or anything, but like I could not process these belief systems. So I would go out of body. And this is what happened to me at 12 years old. I was president of the class. I was making close to all A's. I was all this stuff. And the teacher said, Sherry can't see the board. No, I was bored out of my mind. I would go out of body. And so my mother whips me down to the eye doctor and said she's got an eye problem. I never had an eye problem, but they ruined my eyes. But the fact was I was so bored. And I was making good grades and, president of the class and all that stuff. But I just was bored. I go, this is ridiculous. This doesn't even make any sense. So I was already reading at a completely different, I don't want to say level, but place than what I was getting in the 7th grade without judging it. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm going, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
So, but then how do you assist your clients to not just heal past it, but even in some cases, if necessary, to remember, right? How would I go back to 7-year-old Eric? And I know I do different techniques with journaling and different things with dreams, but in terms of to gain those memories of my mother recuperating and how I was dealing and surviving that year of life.
Surviving, that's the thing, surviving. But as Neo, we're like watching a segment of our life, but we're not emotionally hooked in. We're not emotional. We're just observing and going, you know what, this happened. I can't. So I say this, knowing at my deepest knowing, I can't change the past. Right. It's 1 second ago, but I can change the future, and it's 1 second from now. So in that Neo position, and I have many people, business people, like you name it, from all walks of life, will say, thank you for teaching me Neo, because now we get the facts instead of the emotional attachments. Because what happened was very, very traumatic when that happened to your mom. And we don't have the experience to experience the experience. And so
there's no need to replay it in that sense.
Nope, you're not redoing it. You're looking at it as Neo, and then you say, do I keep all this crap in my cells, or I delete it?
Just delete it, right.
So we just delete it, let it go, dump it, get rid of it, whatever. So we must look at it from that standpoint.
So there has to be a level, whether it's me or even any of the people that you work with, there has to be the admittance and that level of acknowledgement, so then you can embrace it to then release it, correct?
Correct. And it's acknowledging it without blame, shame, guilt, without any of those emotional attachments.
Right.
You just say, okay, this happened. I can't change it. All right. Now, I worked with a gentleman yesterday, don't know him, over the phone, whatever. And he called me back today and he said, I cannot believe the difference that I feel in my body right now. And his life's falling apart. But he said, in 1 hour, I can begin to see how some of this stuff fell apart.
Well, so that's fascinating. And just kind of sharing a personal testimonial, one thing that was really powerful for me, I've had on each foot 2 surgeries, and then on the right foot 2 ankle surgeries as well. and I have had a lot of pain and instability in my ankles and feet. And, you know, working with you, like still, this is what, last week, right? My feet still feel great.
And it was 1 hour.
And it was just 1 hour.
1 hour.
And I've even had a little bit more of a clarity in my vision, right? When I have an eye disease and stuff like that. So that was really huge for me. But one thing that's really powerful, and is this a common thread with all of your clients? I feel this clearness of breath, and I almost think of it like seeing internal light or streamline, like maybe going through all my chakras, but like my breath is like, it's just like the flow of the river. It's just so clear.
That's your energy.
Okay.
And see, once you, like, someone will come to me for anxiety, depression, or something. So when they fill out my intake sheet from A to Z, I know exactly where they are because of what. So ankles and wrists that are not taught represent support, a lack of support, and then the throat's the feet. So if we can't speak our truth, we get stuck somewhere. And that's a lot of the feet problems that we have. And I'm certainly not discounting that you don't go to a podiatrist or whatever. But the fact is, we have to look at what the emotionality is. And so we have had a lot of operations, or we've cut ourselves. We're trying to cut out the issue. And so it's like if someone cuts off your arm, you still have the phantom arm. So you can do all these things, which isn't a judgment, but the cellular memorization is still there. And that's what I assist people to do to get rid of the cellular memorization. I mean, I have a couple pictures here. Can I show them?
Sure. Show the audience.
All right. So these were taken with 12-year-old's technology. These were blood cells of my client. And this is awful. I didn't know the doctor was doing this. I don't take them. And these were her cells 3 months later. They're perfect. How could that happen in 3 months? And here is a picture of a gal that was overweight hairdresser, and look at her legs here. I'll show them up. And look, this was 4 hours later compared to this. See the difference in the color here.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. So here's one. This lady had cancer. This is cancer. This is 4 days later. Cancer 4 days later. Isn't that amazing? And here's what. She couldn't see. She could not see. And their doctor sent her to me. And her test came out perfect. And now this is what, she looks like now. Look at that. Isn't she beautiful?
Wow.
So the fact is, when we get into this turmoil, we get disenfranchised from ourselves. All I'm doing is showing you how to connect to yourself. And it changes your life. It changes your family's life. It changes into perspective instead of perceptions, which are the reception and deception and conception of our what that we make up the stuff. Perceptions have no fact. Perspectives do. And what I do is assist you to get to the facts, so then we don't have all that emotionality crap going on.
That's so powerful. So I want to share another placement, because this speaks to some of the work that you recently told me about, that I think is so amazing and beautiful, and speaks to your Virgo heart, right? You have Mars and Uranus in the 11th house. And I mentioned about the flight stuff as the pilot, but it also really speaks to you working with groups and organizations. And you recently shared with me, I want you to share with the audience, about your connection through LinkedIn and working with some amazing people in Uganda. Share that with the audience and what you're connecting with.
Who would know? This man connected me from Uganda. He has an orphanage, and these are all young boys, and some mom brought a little girl, she's a baby. But I got to talk, and I don't speak Ugandan, and they don't speak English, but the guy who started it is young, and I got to connect, and we will do it again, and I'll find a way to assist them and whatever, but we communicated. And one kid said he'd like to be a doctor, so I gave him some suggestions, even in Uganda. And another kid said he would like to be a pilot, so I gave him some suggestions, because I said, I'm a pilot, and I love flying. But because they didn't have the idea of maybe looking in a different place for information. And one said he'd like to be a policeman. I said, go to your local police department, or one of them, wherever they are, and ask them if you one would like to be a fireman. So I said, go to one of them and just ask if you could be their mascot and look around, because someone would listen to them, because they said, you're an orphan, you don't have anything, you can't do anything. And I said, all of you are the future of this planet. It doesn't matter that you're an orphan in Uganda. What matters is what's in your heart, in your own inner knowledge, that you can overcome that.
That's beautiful.
And what matters is that you're all together in this place, supporting each other. It was so inspiring. I could cry about it right now.
Yeah.
So, what did I get out of it? I will tell you, the best connections. And they all asked, would you come to Uganda? And I would love that. So you see, you never know, because I answered a conversation on LinkedIn.
That's beautiful.
Because we're all linked and we're all different flavors.
Yeah. So have you always, I think of Uranus and Gemini, and have you always been a forward-thinking, innovative, vanguard type of person and human in
Yes.
your communication style and just in the way you connect with others?
Yes. And this is amazing to me. I actually have I have a friend from the third grade. I'm not kidding you. Even though we haven't always been close or whatever, I have friends that connect to me from, we called it junior high then, middle school, high school, from the corporate world, that still keep in contact with me. I just find that absolutely extraordinary.
That's beautiful.
It is. And we're all different. It doesn't matter. We are all different, but that's the uniqueness of everybody. In duality, everybody wants everybody to be the same. That is so, you know what? I've had 5 near-death experiences. I never died of boredom.
I love that. I love that. So wait, let me ask you this. With all that's happening right now, right? I try to explain to my audience, people can get caught up in fear. I tell them, one, turn off the television, right? It's no bueno. But I also let people know there's nothing to fear. We're going through a shift, right? It's a great change coming out of the age of Pisces, the Piscean age, into the age of Aquarius. It can be a little bumpy, but let people know, we're really headed to a better place, even though we're dealing with a lot of darkness in this plane right now. What do you see what's going on in the rest of 2024, but also give people the glimpse into the future and the glimmer of hope for the collective?
Okay, so what I see is the split. So there are going to be those who will hang on to their belief systems to the point where it could cause death or sickness or what. That's the rigidity. Did you know that arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia are rigid belief systems at the core? They are for many people. So there are those who would rather be followers. This is not a judgment of anybody.
Right.
But in the shift is for you to be a powerful individual, yet connected. And each of you, to be a powerful individual, you must be yourself first. And that's how you connect. So we are in the split. And that's what duality is. We are in the split. And there are those that are going to go their way, whatever that is. But remember, the grid's closed. You can't get back anymore. The new kids on the block since 2002 and in that first wave of COVID, they know so much. For instance, 1-year-old boy, he's a year now. I worked with him in the womb, and he told me coordinates in the universe. He gave me all kinds of information. Eric.
And he was just born in 2022 or 23?
Yeah, he's 1 year old. He was just, he just turned 1. But when he was in the womb, and I have his sisters in the womb. His sister is 7 and 5. His sisters, he told me about places that I didn't remember or knew, and I looked them up, and sure enough, they were exactly where he told me. I looked them up on the internet. So these are...
You're talking about here on Earth or in the galactic?
Oh, no, these are the new kids on the block that are beyond galactic.
No, I mean the coordinates that he was sharing with
you. Yeah, totally galactic.
Oh, wow.
Totally. And it was just so extraordinary. And these children are amazing. They are our future. Embrace them. So I call them the new kids or the double heart kids, and then I call them the new kids. They're very new. And
Well, I
it's
think there's a
not,
little bit of a difference, right? Because I think the kids that are like 12-ish and younger, that's the Neptune Pisces kids. My kids will be 11 tomorrow. That's the Alpha generation. They're very awakened, spiritual,
yes,
healing energy. But then these newer kids, I think the ones you're talking about, like these little Pluto Aquarius or the ones born since 2020,
yes,
the four and unders, they're like on a whole nother, right?
totally. And some of these little babies will connect to me if I go to like Sprouts or something. They just are amazing. In my, I've had friends where their babies reached out to me when they were in the womb.
Wow.
I'm not making this up. You can't make this up.
But what, like, were there any messages for the collective or humanity? Have you sensed that from any of them? Or
Absolutely.
okay,
Is to please let go. Let go and be yourself. I kid you not. Like talking to these kids in the womb, they are very clear. It's just it's so extraordinary to talk with them, and that's why I teach their parents to listen, to
yeah.
absolutely listen, and they have knowledge. So in this idea of knowledge, so I feel like I don't know when I was born. For instance, we are so used to labels. So in my third near death experience in 91, I came back with the name Anshara. And that triggered all the memories about the Nibirians and what we talked about before.
Right, right.
Anshara is a Sumerian word. It means when you open your heart, transformation begins.
Mm.
And I came back with that name. It was not my name to begin with, but it is my name and it resonated. And sharing was about sharing, but that was really a nickname. My mother gave me this name. I'm going, were you on drugs? If you weren't, you should have been, because I could never relate to the name she gave me. My mother wouldn't even think of it. Coffee would be the biggest drug she'd ever take. But the fact is, and actually some of my clients is their children, these new kids, have actually told their mother or their father what they would like their name to be.
Well, okay, so that's really deep because my son Mateus, he selected his name from the womb.
Yes, because
Yeah.
it's their resonance. It's their resonance.
We had like we were like kind of thinking about names one night with the twins, and I realize now all children pick their name, right? I had my 15-year-old, I had his name William way before I even met my wife, and it was just it's my father's first name, but still my middle name, but I just knew it. But he it was so many things that really show that, like, it was just like so amazing. But the twins, yeah, Jackson and Mateus, but Mateus, he kicked and we said other names and nothing, but only when we said Mateus, he confirmed it 3 different times.
Yes, absolutely, because they know who they are. And so I encourage the parents that I work with, do not program these kids with duality belief systems.
Mm.
I'm not wronging anything in any way, shape, or form. But we have been brought up with these belief systems that never, as a child, made sense to me. Never. Not one time I didn't get it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I've shared this with a few of my guests, and it's something that I feel should be, and it's where we need to go in the future, especially with these newer souls coming in. It's like we need to get back to the mystery schools and reimagine education and knowledge, where we are teaching your work, your system. We are teaching numerology, astrology. We are teaching, you know, um, science, but also teaching them agriculture, growing food, like real like skills,
Yes.
and envisioning, because learning should be in a cipher where everybody's looking at one another, not some teacher in the front of the classroom dictating to kids at a desk and they're indoors all day when they should be out there getting the frequencies from the sun. But what would you call it, like an actual school? Is it bringing up back the mystery schools and that ancient wisdom and knowledge? How would you reimagine like elementary school for children?
to be very interactive and very connected to each other, and not make it a mystery. But let's on mystery the mystery. So if you look at the word spelling.
Yes.
Eric, what are the first five letters of the word spelling?
Spell. Yeah.
Spell. Look at
Exactly.
yes, look at the word
Casting spells. Yep.
yes, look at the word culture. What are the first four letters of the word culture? A cult.
Yep.
And so then this cult has to fight against this cult. And if you look at the belief system, BS, and that's duality. Oops, I did it again. We don't have to do it. We did not come here to be a recycle bin. We came here to create our lives in a real, clear, practical way, and not suppress somebody for what they like to do. That was like it's so, how can I put it? It's idiotic. Duality is absolutely idiotic. My way or the highway, and that's how prejudice happens. And it recycles, and we're seeing that now with the recycle bin of it. Why does this have to happen? Why are we teaching? So if in the cellular memorization comes the minute the sperm hits the egg. So if you are born within a mother and father and they hate somebody or hate a group, that memorization is imprinted in the baby to hate.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yes, I'm telling you, it's a fact. I've
Yeah.
done this for so long and I've seen it.
Well, we've got a lot of work to do still.
Yes, we do. So
And,
maybe you'll become a holistic Anshara facilitator. Whatever. It's just a descriptive, but it's being able to do that. And if you're looking for sessions, I'm happy to do it. I love that. I do.
so as we wind up, I want you to share again, but also share specifically where people can find you on social media. How can they follow you on Instagram and where the different places? Where are you at?
Yep, I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. You'll see me share Charlie's official. I am on Facebook all over the place. I have conversations with Sherry, or just look me up at Sherry Anshara. And then I'll give you my phone number. And I'm in Arizona on Pacific Standard Time, 480-609-0874. That's 480-609-0874. I'm all over social media. I have a YouTube channel. And actually, if you go to Roku for free, I have the Medical Intuitive channel. I mean, put myself on there's Medical Intuitive channel. And then I have some other podcasts from way back when. It's called The Quantum Truth with Sherry Anshara. And I love sharing information. I love providing it that you connect to your own information, which is in form at your ion level. So remember, you have all the knowledge within you. All I'm doing is supporting you to remember your cellular memory, your natural intelligence. So I can't wait to talk to some of you or support you. It doesn't matter where you are in the
Well,
world.
I'm sure my audience will be reaching out to you because let me tell you, I already have been bragging on you and speaking very highly of you
And
because,
the same.
well, because you know what, energetically, it was so strong. You immediately connected and met my wife and shared some
Oh,
medical information with her. But then, as soon as I met you, I was really busy. I couldn't get you in for the reading that day, and I was actually kind of bummed about it because I was like, even though other people had signed up, I was like, but that woman, there's some, what I mean? Like I felt it, I knew, and so I'm so glad that we got to connect and do that. But it, there's I think exactly what you said, that resonance, right? When you meet a soul and it's really powerful. And I kind of wanted to leave on this note and get your thoughts because right now we have Saturn and Neptune in Pisces until February of 2026. They'll move into a conjunction in Aries together. And the human design prophecy is that the collective is going to leave the solar plexus and vibrate from the heart chakra in 2027. And there's just a lot going on right now with people and deception, all over, right? Through religion, spirituality, cults, like you said. But what are your overlining thoughts in terms of how people are kind of limited or let's say, belief systems programmed through the lens of religion. And I'm not trying to knock religion, but
No,
just,
me either.
but just those divisions that are created by it, what does that do? Well, we see the results of it, right? But where should people be really looking in the concepts of religion? And I don't want to say verse spirituality, but the religion spirituality discussion or debate.
Okay, so you talked about the heart and the solar plexus. So I call the solar plexus two people in there. There's the childish adult ego, our survivalist, or the perfect child within, the PCW. So when you connect to that PCW, you feel, and there isn't any religion or belief system or cult. When you feel it, and when it's connected to your heart, I call that the feeling center. When you feel, you're not thinking, you're not emotioning, you know there's a connection. And so I will use you, Eric. I had no idea that I was going to go over to Missy's. Not at all. I was driving back from appointment and doing all this. I get to Scottsdale Road here and I hear just turn right. So it probably was your mother, as you said. And so when you follow that inner guidance, then how could you hurt someone? Because when
Mm.
you hurt someone and you're prejudiced against someone, guess what? It's against yourself. Because in your continuum, you have been Jewish, you have been Arab, you have been black, you have been, whatever color, you've been Chinese, whatever. And that's the resonance. So in different places that I've traveled to in the world, there were some places I knew I had been there before. There was I knew the place.
Yeah.
It wasn't this timeline at all. And so it's called connection. So when you disconnect in that prejudice of religion or government or cult or belief system, you are actually separating yourself from yourself.
Mm.
And so when you connect the heart and the solar plexus, the feeling center, you feel it. And that's what I feel when I'm working with the kids in the room or anybody. And Eric, when you were, laying on my quote healing table, all I did was hold your head and connect with you. I didn't say I was going to fix you. There's something wrong with you. How could you be so damn dumb? Why did you do all this? Or, like it's all your fault or, your mother's fault or somebody's fault.
Yeah.
That's the fault line. And so why are these fault lines splitting in the planet right now? All over the earth right now? Because we have been split from our own self through the process of the belief systems of duality. But when you connect to yourself, you become centered in self. When you are centered in self, you come first. This is not selfish. It's centered in self so you have the energy and the capacity to assist others.
That's so beautiful.
And you've got to listen.
Yeah, I tell you, I was trained and a professional actor for years, and listening is how you can act, right? Because I have to listen to your lines before I can deliver mine.
Exactly.
That's why they make lawyers sometimes. They used to do this. I don't know if they still do it, but a lot of lawyers would take acting classes because
Yes.
you have to learn to listen, So that's thank you for the work that you do and will continue to do. This has been just so awesome. It's such a joy. But I gotta just say. So tell us real quick though. The number 5. What was the last NDE?
The last NDE was I actually, and I never fainted, and it was because somebody was sick and they didn't tell me that. And so what they had, it actually, though I have a healthy body, impacted me, and I fainted and I smashed, and I had the other smashes were on my left brain, but this was my right brain. I go, maybe I had to wake that up. And so when I fell, I had a huge concussion. I actually ended up a couple days in the hospital, but I was out. And there was a point that I said, you know what? This could be the one. This could be the one.
Oh my gosh, Sherry.
And then my heart said, it's not. You must wake up. And I woke up on the floor. And I've never fainted in my life ever. And that was last year, April. A year ago, April.
Wow. So each near-death experience and each time you kind of tangoed and did the dance with other realms, did you always feel you came back with new information and or a new purpose?
Yes, expanded purpose and new information and expand. So I knew that's why I did that. So that's why that was a quick in and out burger, I call it. But it was that, and it made me that much more passionate about doing what I'm doing to assist people to get conscious. And like you have one, and then it's two, and then it's four, and then it's 8, 16, 32, 64, and on and on and on. And so that is my focus, is to how many people's lives that I can touch or that I can teach. I'm not, and actually, and to become a holistic Anshara facilitator, I'm really not going to teach you. I'm going to assist you to remember what we
Yeah.
what we have forgotten through these belief systems, through the spells, through the cults, through all of that. And you know
Or
what?
the matrix programming.
And get out of the matrix. That's why I wrote the book, Busting Out of the Matrix. And I got really good reviews on Amazon.
No, that's the one I believe my wife, we already started listening to the Audible.
Isn't it?
It's it is fascinating.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
And
and I love all the Sherryisms because I shared with you that I have my E-isms, and it's just I just that really I have to say my favorite aunt who passed away. She was a sweet cancer. She used to always say that that tickled me pink or whatever. But like the fact that we both have our isms, I was like, come on, get out of here. You can't make that up.
you
So
can.
wait, now wait. I've shared this with my audience, and I'm getting ready to speak at a conference sharing my NDE journey. But it would be wrong of me to not ask this while I have you here on the show with my audience, because knowledge is love. So 40 days. I was in coma for 40 days. What did I really select and choose that?
You did.
And what was I mean, I know I've gained so much information and upgrade, but from your side of it, how would you explain or share your revelations on that with the audience? Because obviously it was a little, mixture of valley fever and mainly the Delta COVID, but 40 days in coma and really going through spiritual warfare and the dark night of the soul. Why?
Well, here I'll give you what came to me. See, there is no time. There is no time. So I taught this to physicists even. So Eric, spell the word time.
TIME.
And split it in half. What does it spell? Tie me.
Timing.
And if you spell it backwards, it's emit. So time is really an increment of space in which to create an experience to experience. So I got the metaphor and the actuality that you picked 40 days so you could be for yourself. And that gave your body the cellular memory and to release some of the memorization to go through that to be for yourself, not selfish, but centered in self.
Wow.
And you required those increments for your body to experience. And also to delete that doesn't serve you, keep what does and expand upon. See, people think healing is just dumping stuff. No, keep what serves you and expand upon it. Dump what doesn't. Get rid of it. That's what you were doing. You
Yeah.
need that timeline to do it.
That's really deep. And it's funny, as you said that, it made me smile because I've almost forgotten on my second hip hop album, True Speaker, I recorded a song called Time.
And,
And I said on the song, TIME. I said this is mental enslavement. That's how I broke down time. This is mental enslavement. And they killed all the brave men. Now we got to watch out for all the killer cavemen. Your freedom is fading. Haha, your freedom is fading. I was like, time, that's the name of the song. So, wow, that's, woof. That just poured over me right now because that's pretty heavy.
no accidents.
No accidents. Wow. Sherry, You are truly an original. And I just want to thank you for coming on the Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast today, sharing your beautiful light, all your information, the Anshara cellular memorization techniques and everything. And please, as we say goodbye, what is the website again?
My website is sherryanshara.com, and the school, if you're interested, and we start September 9th, is Anshara, Anshara, AnsharaInstitute.org. We're a nonprofit, and our goal is to change the healthcare industry from the inside out.
I love it. And so it is, and it is done. This was awesome. Thank you guys for watching episode 235, Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast. Sherry, please, you know what? Promise me. No, promise me. You will come back in the fall, maybe even, before the new year, before Christmas. I want you to be my holiday gift, and we come back and do this live with the audience. Would you like to do that?
I would be thrilled. And you said it's 235, that ends up to a 10, which means new beginnings.
There you go.
Because 3 and 5 is 8.
That's right. I know.
It's new beginnings.
And I was born on the 10th, so there you go.
And it's new beginnings for the planet. And I'm trusting that, this methodology will make new beginnings for people. Brand new, not old, based on something else, but brand new. Thank you, Eric. Thank you. I had so much fun.
You're welcome. And I know that it will. All right, you guys, take care. Another amazing podcast of Knowledge.